We'll do it live. It.
There he is, Jason Pilgrim.
What's happening, bro?
What you got? I didn't know I was interviewing two people today. What we got?
This is Romeo.
Romeo, check that
This is
out.
an eclectic parrot. This is my service animal right here.
That's awesome.
I take him everywhere I go.
That's awesome.
Just about. Yeah, he's been in Walmart. He's been lost about 20 times. Like out in the wilderness, in Louisiana, in North Carolina. Lost for 2 days. Yeah, he's an adventurous guy.
And he ends up coming back?
Well, yeah. Now he comes back, but I used to have to go find him. So that was rough.
How would you find him?
Just go walking through the woods, yelling and screaming, calling for him the whole time. He was gone for 2 days. My wife and I were looking for him. Now, in North Carolina, we have a home. My mother died, and God rest her soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have this home that we decided to keep up there. It's in the family, my sister and I. And so we were up there, and he flies off the deck. And this is when his wings were clipped, so he could fly downhill, but not uphill. So he flies downhill about maybe 150 yards out, which is about 200 feet elevation up and down. So for 2 days, we went downhill, walking in the woods, looking in the rain, yelling. He wouldn't make a sound. He wouldn't talk, nothing. So your boy ends up the last day. I tell my wife, leave me here. I can't leave without the bird. That's my brother, you know? So she comes, she brings me to the store, get some groceries and some beer, come back up, and he hears the car turn off. It's one of those hybrid Highlanders. So, pew, makes that weird noise. Your boy hears that and makes a squawk. Wah!
Oh, no way.
That was a fucking tropical bird. That was not a bird that belongs up here in North Carolina. So I went looking, and my wife goes, there he is right there. And he was right under the deck, right where he had flew from, but he couldn't fly. Like he had no lift because he was clipped. So he walked home for 2 days, like an inch at a time, dude. Uphill, fighting mountain lions, fighting bears, fighting foxes, and God knows what. Wouldn't make a sound.
Wow.
So yeah, he's been on a lot of adventures, man. I'm gonna write some books about him, man. I'm gonna get some books published.
Well, that's cool.
You know any good publishers, let me know.
Man, these days, self-publishing is the way to go. You know?
Yeah, I know. It is, because I can self-promote it, and I don't have to pay nobody to do all that shit.
Exactly. It's kind of like music these days. I mean, yeah, you could sign to a label, and probably before you could do it yourself. It's a do-it-yourself world today. By the way, you look it's practically as good as the last time I saw you, which was in 1992. 1992.
Yep.
It was Paralysis Parade.
Yep.
It was my last night in New Orleans, and I've told that story before. I'm not going to tell it again, but I'm going to put the flyer on the screen. But that night solidified one thing for me, is that you are one of my favorite vocalists. I mean, you're I'm good. I'm just let me kiss your ass a little bit, because it's true.
Hey, man, look, I'll take it a little, because you know what I put out there was the best that I could do at what I was doing. So for anyone to say, man, I love that, it's like, you got it. You know what I mean? Like, you got it.
Cool. Well,
for sure.
And it was also at a time, like we're talking about record labels a second ago. It was this was before do it yourself. So to be able to call yourself a Relapse Records on the roster is forever. That's never going to be taken away from you. That's a big deal. There are thousands of metal bands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, for all I know, that would love to be on Relapse Records, and you did it.
Y'all did it. And
y'all did it.
You know how we did it?
How?
Well, we were the laziest band there could be, as far as shopping labels, doing this and that, doing that. And Pellet, good buddy Pellet, years back, he, through the tape trading scene, because everybody was tape trading, and I went to high school with Ben Falgout, and so, he was the biggest tape trader I've ever seen. Him and Glenn Rambo, they were the biggest I've ever seen. Patton too, yeah.
So Pellet, who's Pellet?
So Pellet, Sean Pelletier. He at the time he worked for Relapse Records, and through the tape trading scene, I'm not even sure who got it to him.
Mm-hmm.
He heard it and loved it and brought it to the guys over at Relapse and pushed to try and get us on, and he was able to get us signed. So through no effort of our own, even God bless Renee and Todd for trying, and even back further than that, Blake and Joe and Dewan, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But through no effort of our own, I don't believe did it ever get in the hands of any kind of record label. It was whoever got it to whoever got it to whoever got it to Pellet, and Pellet loved it and wanted to hear more. And that's how we got signed.
Well, you got signed off of the sound. It wasn't because you knew anybody, which is a cooler. I mean, that's just the way it was back then. You can give out thousands of demos, but I mean, at that point, you're gaining fans. But as far as getting it to a record label and someone who can, or someone that sees you live and says, "Oh, we got to sign these guys," that's just the way it was.
Right.
I have a history with Jose Mangan, who is on Liquid Metal and Sirius.
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved to Memphis, I met him here in Memphis, and he was a radio DJ at the time and going to school. And I kept in touch with him, and he moved to New York to work for TVT Records. This is late 90s. So they had bands like Seven Dust, heavier bands, but not like death metal
heavier
bands.
than the typical mainstream radio play pushing label would have.
Yeah, I mean they had some industrial stuff, which was really back then, kind of industrial metal stuff. So, but I went up there and I visited him, and I went to TVT when he worked there, and I got a tour and everything like that. But you wouldn't believe the amount of mail and demos they get through the mail.
Oh yeah.
Especially at that time when the internet was around, but it wasn't like it is now. Streaming
wasn't like now where you could talk to anybody you want at any moment. Yeah, no, back then, no, you had to put a lot of effort in and then hope that it didn't just get passed off. They're ear weary from the other 12 things they just listened to, and they hear that and they go, "Oh, that's just more garbage,"
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Back then, I didn't think we were ever going to get signed. I mean, I thought we would get lucky at some point to put something out that wasn't a demo, but I didn't think we would actually get signed to a record label to put out our own material.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that no joke. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh yeah, that was no big deal." I mean, that was a big deal, bro. That was like, are you kidding me? Holy shit. What? No way, man.
That's awesome.
Now what are we going to do? Like, now we got to get serious. How did that happen? How do we get signed? Crap, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that was a big deal, and it was pretty cool. And especially to Relapse. I mean, much respect to Relapse Records. At least back then, especially, they were putting out artists that we couldn't find on any other label other than Earache. And, I mean, there were some, but there weren't many out there that you could find what you were looking for. And there weren't easy ways to find what you were looking for either. And at least Relapse had enough name clout to get into stores like Tower and Virgin and, stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
where they could at least put your material out.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone happened to be looking for some reason for your name, boom, they could find it,
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool back then.
Yeah.
To be on a label big enough to where I could go buy my own record if I wanted to, that was nice.
That was my next question, because I asked Renee his experience, because I can't imagine what that experience would be like. And I even asked him what store did he go to, and he said he went to the Virgin store in the French Quarter, and he saw.
I thought it was Tower, but he's correct. He's right. It was Virgin that it was that we found it at. Yeah, and we probably all bought a copy. Me, Shane, Renee, and Todd probably all four bought a copy on our own. Like without the other guys.
Do you remember? Do you remember it? Do you remember going in the store and seeing it and buying it?
I do. Yeah.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Oh Jesus!
I want to know the experience. I want to live vicariously through you.
All right, check this out. You'll like this one too. I
Okay.
got stories for days. My bird's playing the keyboard. Stop.
Hey, maybe a bird can collaborate with the Hate Beak singer.
Oh, he could. This bird sings just like I do, but he sings at quarter volume.
That's
You know,
awesome.
if you were practicing in your head demo wise, you know, screaming like that, that's how he does it.
Cool.
So if he's listening to country music or something, in the breaks where they don't sing, he fills them with screaming.
That's awesome.
So no, this dude's amazing. Let's get to the story. So yes, so I heard that it was at Virgin Megastore, and so I'm gonna have to move this bird because his tail's gonna block the camera. Come on,
it's a beautiful bird. I saw a blue jay in my backyard this morning. It's so crazy because I was washing dishes and I have a kitchen window looking out over the backyard, and sometimes I'll see a red cardinal or a blue jay, and they're the most beautiful things. I just sit there and I just admire it while the 30 seconds they're there before they fly away.
I got 2 bird feeders and I get so many cardinals. Like you'll see 13 to 15 at any time. The males, the females, and then every now and then the big blue jays will come. And I got a cage outside for this guy too that I can put him in so he can be outside and not fly away and kind of look at all the other birds and stuff. So yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's kind of special when you see a bird like that.
Yeah,
you know, that's not a big, pretty bird that makes you pause a moment. You know,
yeah,
pretty cool.
It is. You cannot find a better red than the red feathers of a cardinal or the blue feathers of a blue jay. I mean, it is just
agreed.
Just
one in good shape that's not all battle torn. Yeah. I mean, beautiful colors. I agree. All right, I gotta make. Yeah, he's good. He's just eating the vape. So yeah, so dig it. So we go to Virgin, we go walk over there and get in there, and we're looking for a couple other things, see if they got any Godflesh or New Scorn or anything like that. And boom, there it is. And they got, I don't know, about 4 copies. So I grab one. And I go to check out, and I got Toby and Alexis behind me. Toby's getting, I don't know, Beastie Boys, Ghetto Boys, something killer on that line. Alexis is just hanging out, who knows what he's getting. And so, I'm buying my own record there, and well, there's a CD you got behind you. And while I'm checking out, and there's this girl behind the counter, cute girl, no big deal, don't make an ass of yourself, just buy your stupid record, And as I'm buying it, Alexis behind me steps up over my shoulder, just like this bird, and goes, "That's Jason Pilgrim. That's his record right there. He's on it. Look at the back." And he shows him the picture, the whole black eye on the back. And I'm like, oh, God. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, so that's how I bought my first CD of my own material.
That's great.
Was by being completely embarrassed in every way possible. But loving every minute of it because you're hanging out with people you love and people that that respect you for what you did, so they want to celebrate you, even though it's kind of stupid and it's pretty embarrassing.
What aspect?
So,
what do you mean?
Well, you don't want somebody telling the person you're buying it from that, oh, that's his record, and he's paying you for his own record.
I got
you. Look, I'll prove it to you on the back.
Nah,
it's like, just let me buy my stupid little CD and get out of here.
Man, I think that's just human. There's not. If you find me a person who gets, especially that, or any time gets a record out and doesn't go buy it themselves, then they're not human.
So I agree. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thrill of it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, whether you listen to it or not, no matter what, even if the record company gives you 20, you want to go buy your own record just for that thrill, that feeling.
Sure. Well, I recently saw a video, a very touching video of that. You know who Jelly Roll is? He's like this country big guy, tattoos.
Yeah, big old tattoo guy. Yeah.
His record's doing really good, and they filmed him buying his record at Walmart, and he was crying. It was a big fucking deal,
It's a pretty cool feeling.
I want to tell you my experience buying it. Because I saw y'all at the show, and I want to talk about why I like you as a vocalist. It's one thing to just say, "Oh, you're one of my favorite vocalists," but I want to go into why, and it's very relevant to the time and to what's going on today. So I do want to do that. So I saw your show, and it was the first time I've ever seen vocals. I saw Pantera before, and I've seen thrash, but this was the first time I've seen an extreme metal show.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. I just loved it so much. I loved the vocals. I loved what you're doing. I loved the energy. I loved all of it. So I came to Memphis that literally the next day with no community. I was on my island over here. And so
right.
So it was Metal Maniacs magazine. There was no internet. I would go back occasionally in New Orleans, and I would visit, and that's when I remember seeing Ben. He'd give me some tapes and demos. There was a record store here called Planet Music, and it was one of the first record stores it was just huge, like Virgin, like Tower, but it was one of the first ones. They had a listening section, and they had a bunch of they had a bunch of CD players, and you could go, you check it in, they open it up for you.
The headphones,
and they had everything. I mean, we would go, and I would go in there by myself. I worked at a bookstore right next to it, and they were open to like midnight or 11:30 or something, and we closed at like 10, and I'd go there for an hour after work.
Yeah, and hang out and just look through and listen.
Yeah, but around that time, because I was working in the same strip mall, there was word coming in to bookstore that Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley was there. Lisa Marie Presley being
because you're in Memphis.
Yeah, being from Memphis, she married Michael Jackson for a couple of months or whatever it was right when that happened. Right. Michael Jackson's a big music fan. They were there. They were in there. And I heard the whispers coming in, and they were gone by the time I even had a chance to even go check. But they had a picture of him in that Planet Music. They took a picture and they put it in there of him in the store. So it was a big deal, man. It was a big deal.
Nice.
But that's where I ended up. I would keep waiting and watching or hearing through the grapevine that this was coming out. And I still listen to it and love it. The reason I love your vocals so much is because I was looking for things that were multifaceted, things that stood out. Of course, I liked your standard death metal at the time, Cannibal Corpse, Death Grind, Napalm, all that stuff. But the vocals were always like, this is a death metal vocal, and you do it from start to finish. It was just the way it was. You didn't really have much difference in it. There's been like Disincarnate, which I really liked. That was James Murphy's record that he put out, and it's just like, okay, we gotta get a death metal singer, and it's just gonna be someone that could do the death metal vocal, and that's it. But I was also coming back from a Mike Patton, Faith No More, Angel Dust. I really like
great stuff.
I really like what he was doing, and when he would push the edge of screaming, high pitched stuff. But he would really
top level.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't really go. I knew he can go low, but it just wasn't going to translate in Faith No More. He did a little bit in Mr. Bungle, but
every now and then he'd do a hit somewhere, but that was all. Yeah, he wouldn't do a verse, or he wouldn't do a chorus or a line.
No, but if you see him live, even during the Real Thing era, like he'd throw him in on live performances and stuff, and you could hear he can do the roar. So
sure,
what you were. So they weren't, as far as my experience and what I was looking for, there weren't many people that were doing more than one range, and you were doing. For me, if I wanted death metal vocals, I wanted to be super low and just. And then I wanted it super high. And you
Chris
did
Barnes, bottom, lower than him if you could find it, Corpse Grinder.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
And you did both. And not only did you do both, you did the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows in one song, back and forth. It flowed so well. I've been listening to Coping With It a lot lately. A love that
Great
song.
song.
And
Great
I
song.
love the lows you hit in it. It's like when it shifts. And I always say this about grindcore, you
Yeah.
know, it's like I'm not really a fan of blast beats and stuff, but I like them when it's going to be followed by some groove or a slow chug or something different.
Dynamics.
The
Yeah.
dynamics. It's like, oh,
Dynamics.
I like the speed when it's combined. So, yeah, you
Right.
guys.
Right.
So, how did you come up with this? I mean, I know it's a long
Well,
story, but just tell me, and I'll interject if I feel I need to.
yeah. So I like the highs. I liked uh, Old Lady Drivers, the first record, tremendous record. The vocals on that, the madness on that, the insanity, the not give a shit about it. You know, I mean, they do, but they don't. I like that aspect of it. It made music fun, and it gave me ideas. And then, of course, with Napalm, you had true grindcore. I'm talking scum from enslavement. I'm talking just monuments today, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that's what I would listen to constantly. And I just got grindcore going, or I got Faith No More going, or I've got Butthole Surfers going. You know,
Mm.
I've just got some madness and some dynamics and some noise going. So I really love that too. Now with Napalm, the highs, I mean, some of those, you know, the top, I mean, just up there. That's what stood out to me the most. Mick was doing some great highs, and Dorian was hitting some amazing highs too. You know, I loved all of the vocals on all those earlier albums,
Mm-hmm.
all the way even up to Utopia Banished, and all that was, of course, a turning point, and that's a whole different interview on that. But yeah, so anyway, those were the vocals I really liked that really stood out. The lows, of course, same thing. I like the low, just low, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I wanted to do.
Mm.
So that's what we started doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, let's see how far I can push the limits. And then it was, you know, Renee is an amazing guitarist. Not many people realize that because he doesn't solo, because he doesn't want to solo, because he doesn't feel like he has to solo, because if it doesn't fit the song, why do it?
I agree.
So he kind of made a decision. These songs aren't going to really have solos back then. And I said, well, so that means I don't have to stop singing. There's no reason for me to stop singing from beginning to finish of the song.
Yeah.
So I wanted to push the limits and see how much I could do and what I could accomplish as far as actually writing lyrics and actually pulling that off live. And then, of course, in a practice room to refine it at a rehearsal. But so I wanted to push the limits. I want to do more. I want to do more than anyone. Chris Jouet from Rude Awakening.
Okay.
There was one demo. There's one song on it. If you listen to the demo, you'll know the song. And the vocals just got in my head, you know, through earphones on the old Sony Walkman with the tape, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I respected him so much. And he quit singing. He quit the scene. He just disappeared.
Wow.
And it was like, well, man, now what? Because I thought he was going to be my contemporary, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to kind of push my own imagination on my own. And so that's where it came from. And I wanted to be higher than anyone. And I wanted to scream longer than anyone. And if I could, I wanted to be lower than anyone. But, you know, I mean, Ben's low.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, that was the idea for vocals, was that I wanted to push the limits and be the best I could be at the weird thing that I was doing.
When you were deciding when you were hearing these things, were you already in the jam room yet, or you were gonna be in the jam room? Like, were you developing this and hearing all these things when y'all already started, or when you started your musical journey?
Well, first time I tried it at all was in the studio with Severance, which was that was Renee and I, Brian Kazmierzak on guitar, and Rick Simmons on drums, and of course I think Renee dubbed the bass, and we went in the studio, and before that I sang more thrash, and that's what Brian kind of had in his head and imagination on, and that's how we went.
Okay.
But then I started hearing other things in my head, and I have no idea why, but this is how I operate. I decided in the studio I'm going to do it differently. And if you listen to that demo, I do lows on it. They're not the best lows. I do highs on it. They're not the best highs, but they're good.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, we'll have to send you a copy of that. But yeah, that's the first time I tried it, and then from then on, that's what I did. And as that band kind of broke apart, Renee and I, well, Flesh Parade, Joe and I were good friends. Todd and I, Flesh Parade, Severance, always same jam room, shared the practice room, best of friends, played music together. And Flesh Parade was looking for a vocalist at the time. Blake had left the band. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it, but I want to bring Renee with me. Renee's a guitar player. He and I work really good together. So we went for it. And that's how I got into Flesh Parade and translated the previous vocals into more whatever I wanted to do. And that's when I really cut loose and just pushed the limits on everything.
I feel like thrash vocals are more mid-range to high range. So yeah. So yeah.
And that's why the highs were always easier for me. The highs I can do all day long. I can do the highs right now all day long.
That's amazing.
The lows take a little more control. They take a little more out of you. You have to push differently and from somewhere else sometimes. Yeah. So they take a toll. But, if you get in the practice room and maybe start deciding you don't have to sing over every part of the song and let it breathe a little more, which we always let it breathe enough.
Yeah.
But it's okay to do that. And I used to write lyrics. I would never rhyme anything. If something rhymed, I'd take it out. No, I can't rhyme anything. I wanted to do it my way.
That's
great. Know what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
But now I've softened and decided if it serves the song, that's all I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most singers probably, it's hard to say, but I've done some vocals, and highs for me were more difficult than the lows. But I would, you could tell, I can hear at concerts and shows where singers live avoid the highs or the screams. It just seems, generally speaking, easier to go low. And that's why
and pretty much, or just about, or actually every vocalist, singer, whatever you want to call it, trying it out, pretty much everyone has told me that. But for me, it's the complete opposite. And maybe it was because, we practiced, every 2 weeks, sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month, who knows? But when we practiced, we played every song, and we played them more than once. And I didn't sit out very often.
Man.
I would sing it again and again and again and again and again. So I built up, if you will, vocal calluses. Not that I could feel them. I don't know if that's what it was, but it would slide easier and it wouldn't dig into my throat, if you understand what I'm saying.
No, I do understand what you're saying. I do.
It could just slide right over the top of my throat and out instead of digging in and chewing up my vocal cords.
One of the reasons I respect you and Flesh Parade, because y'all were early on. It's not like the vocal style that you developed and the guitar style that Renee developed and the drums that Todd developed. It's not like that was being done and you guys have just heard this for years. It was literally only a few years. When you talk about Scum, 86, 87, it's not that long after you guys started doing this. So you guys were on the forefront of doing something that was being talked about today, that you know, that's still going
Yeah.
strong. And I'm hearing more and more, because I keep up with music, and I'm hearing more and more vocalists, especially in the metalcore scene, do some crazy lows and some crazy highs. There's a band I like
Yeah.
out of Canada. Man, what is their name? But they had two vocalists, and one did the low, like pig squeal type lows, which I like. And I think the other guy did some highs. So there, you know, you have bands formed that are trying to do, using two singers to do what you were
Yeah.
doing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's an endurance thing, like you said. Like, you don't have a lot of breaks, and your lung power, all that, your endurance, that all plays in a factor. And a
Right.
lot of
Right.
times when
Yeah.
you see these guys live on YouTube, and you're like, they're skipping notes, or they're not going high, it's because they're out of breath. You know.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Right. Exactly. And you know, I wrote the vocals always, always to a practice tape. I would develop vocal patterns in my head and yell them in practice, and we would record.
Yeah.
And when I found one I really liked, I would write vocal patterns, vocal lyrics to the vocal patterns that were on the practice tape. So the breathing was built in to the writing, because the writing was taken from the practice, which was what I could do with the breath I had, breathing where I could. So I figured if I wrote to that, I would have places to breathe within the song if we played it live. And we didn't want vocal effects in the studio that we couldn't pull off live. And, you know, we were big about trying to do it our way. And what you said is true, in the fact that really the only bands that influenced us were the ones I've talked about. Now, of course, we all listen to different things. Morbid Angel, big influence. Deicide came out, death metal band ever. We had Cannibal Corpse, you know, we had Benediction, we had some good stuff. And then Deicide comes out with some of the back and forth stuff that I was doing. To hear something like that, you know, stuff like that. And then, of course, you had Grindcore coming out of the West Coast, too. You know, you had Terrorizer, Righteous Pigs. You had a bunch of good grindcore, but not necessarily with the highs, and with the lows, and with the, you know, I still felt like no one yet had caught on to what I was doing.
No, I agree.
What I was doing was not influenced by those guys. You know what I mean? Even though they may have been a little before me, what I was doing in practice rooms was before I had even heard those guys. Yeah. So my influence was strictly Napalm and OLD for the most part, vocally. But, you know, there was a lot of great music coming out back then. And I'm sure a lot of it influences vocal patterns, maybe, or, you know, what I would hear in my head as a low here, even if it's not what it sounds like when I do it. But, you know, so I'm sure there was a lot of autopsy and other stuff creeping in here and there. Mentally. But, you know, all the stuff I listen to, I try not to listen to anything that in any way would affect my writing.
Yeah, I
kind of avoid a lot of the new metal and stuff. I mean, I'll listen to it, but I don't put it on repeat too much, because I don't want it to influence me.
You are a pioneer as far as I'm concerned. But that's what made me talk about the metalcore, like these metalcore kids that are doing a lot of crazy things vocally. I guess the reason I brought that up is because there's a YouTube channel I like called Charismatic Voice, and she's an accomplished opera singer, and she's a reaction channel. So she started reacting to different things and started talking about the vocal techniques. She's analyzing the vocalist, and then people started pushing her into metal. But she can talk scientifically about the vocal folds and the technique.
I dig it. I know who you're talking about. I've seen a couple of those.
She's really opened a lot of people's eyes, because she took one guy, this guy Will Ramos, and they were showing the folds, and she was analyzing how he does it. They're saying because of whatever he's doing scientifically, he's doing it the right way, which is a natural way for him to do. the thing he says and that you say that freaks a lot of people out is you're like, I can do this all day long, when some people can do it for 10 seconds and they can't talk for a week, you know? So it's like, why can Jason Pilgrim and Will Ramos do these super highs and super lows and for 2 hours a day and it doesn't affect them?
Yeah. The lows are more damaging than the highs for me anyway. So dig it. I get what you're saying, because when I started doing, okay, so you had to make a choice. If you're going to do highs, what are you going to do? You're going to do Norwegian black metal, you know? Or you're going to go, you know, back there where you're confining it and pushing it at the same time and restricting it. You can only get so high doing that. I knew I could get higher. So I said, okay, well, napalm, you know, I went the old lady driver's route first and then said, okay, well, I'll take their nutsiness, craziness and all that and try to go with the napalm highs, the highest I could find, you know, and those I found were back here in the back, You open that up and you can open it up so wide that you can push with restricting your body to control the air instead of restricting with your throat to control the air. And that's what saved my throat. And I was able to do it so much and so easily. Once I found that way to do it, to really open up and open your mouth like you're smiling is big. You remember that Slayer shirt with the big red demon shirt on it when you're in high school, the big crazy, you know, that big smile. You smile and open up like that, and you can access that. Whereas if you're trying to restrict it here, all you're doing is wearing yourself out. Now, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But my point is, that's the way I figured it out, and it works for me. So whether I'm right or wrong, I'd be interested to know. But the highs I figured out how to make very easy.
But it's not easy for everyone. Sure, it's your technique. I had the Melissa Cross book and stuff. There are just some things I am not built to do. What I'm saying is it's not just as simple as, oh, just try this technique and you could sound like Jason Pilgrim on Flush Parade. It's not like that.
No, no, it's not quite that easy. You're right. Yeah. No. Yeah, it's not quite that easy. But, you know, some people, I think, just heard something and tried to imitate it so much they figured out maybe the way it was done, or they figured out a way to imitate it that works for them in a way that they can really do it, you know. Not many people can. Most of the people I hear, in my opinion, are doing it wrong for longevity, the way that they scream the highs. They're pushing for effect and blah, blah. Whereas you have to think of it as the way that you're singing and the way you're controlling it. Because I write vocals like a rap song, you know, I'm hitting syllables and leaving breaths and doing that. So when you're singing, you got to be able to pull that off. And the only way to do that is to take a deep breath and breathe when you're supposed to and hope that the drummer don't screw up. No offense, Todd. It happens. Happens to the best of us. By the way, that's the Kill Whitey drum kit right behind me. Nice. Yeah, and that maple snare back there, if you can see it, the gold wood, is Dirty Sweet snare. And I bought the big 13-inch off of Reverb so I can make a bigger kit.
Nice.
And I got to show this just because I called Todd out.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a Yamaha brass snare that Todd patinaed.
Okay.
And I bought it from him because, you know, drummers are always looking for more gear, so they got to find more money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been, I play drums and, you know, not in a band. I'm not nothing special. But I always wrote lyrics and vocals to Todd's drums, and that's why it came out that way. And so I like to play the drums just for vocal patterns. It helps me think of vocal patterns when I'm playing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned black metal, and my theory is the reason why highs are rare is because they can't do it. I can't do it, but I can almost do it, and that's to me what black metal is. It's almost screaming high, but it's like right here.
I agree. I agree.
Now,
I
some people
agree.
can do it well. Like I like Satyricon. I like
Yeah.
Immortal. There are there are black metal vocalists that don't go as high as you that I think have found a unique style and sound within that range, within that realm,
Yeah.
that do it well.
Works for them. Yeah. In that mid range. Yeah.
One guy I'm impressed with is Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost.
Paradise Lost.
Hmm.
Big influence. I tell you what, I'll take it back. He was an influence. Now I wasn't able to do anything like him, but in thought, he was definitely an influence. If I heard a riff or a part that sounded anything like it could be a Paradise Lost, anything,
Hmm.
I was thinking of how I could put a big vocal there, you know, because he was is an amazing vocalist. Amazing.
He
Love
is.
Paradise Lost.
Yeah, he is. As a matter of fact, going back to the beginning, Ben turned me on to Paradise Lost.
Yeah, probably me too.
Hmm. Hmm. He actually made cassettes for me. Like I've never heard
Yeah, yeah.
of Paradise Lost, and like Gothic. Oh man, I love Gothic. And
Oh,
then
that's a
when,
landmark.
yeah, I mean, yeah, his vocals are deep and bellowing, but over time, I could tell because once again, I've experimented, so I could kind of tell when people are suffering, when people, and I could tell for a
Yeah,
while he was losing it, and he
yeah,
changed his
yeah.
style, over into Icon. Now he's great at mid range. I mean, he was great at what he was doing on
Oh, yeah,
Icon,
yeah.
and things after that when he kind of abandoned the low stuff.
The
I think the
lows.
last time he
Yeah,
really did that was probably Gothic, but
yeah,
then 30 years later, they start evolving back into it. And you could tell, like, we're 50. I think he's
yeah.
probably like 55,
Oh, he's older
56.
than us. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and now he's singing for Bloodbath, and he's going back to what he was doing earlier, and I think he's, I'm not gonna say he's better, but I think he's better at being more of a consistent and
Aware.
control,
Yeah,
aware,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
knowing his instrument better than he probably did when he was 30.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, not to be grim, at this point, you hit 50, it's like, well, what do I have to lose now? Let's blow out the throat. You know what I'm saying? I
Nah,
mean,
it's
let's
really,
give it a shot and see what happens. But again, like you said, with more uh, with age comes knowledge, comes wisdom. Hopefully, if you're not a jackass like 90% of the population, you learn and grow. And yeah, I believe that with that comes a lot more forethought and control, especially in writing and in because nobody wants to have to rely on effects live. But nothing wrong with it if you do. I mean, everyone's using effects, guitars using, everybody's using effects, but
yeah.
vocally, you want to be able to pull it off so that you can kind of hold your own self-respect, at least in my
Yeah.
eyes.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a difference between like EQing and auto tune. You know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
EQing,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
making your
Yeah.
sound a little wetter, a little brighter, maybe a little bit more bass. I think,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's hard to sound check for me. I mean, we used to get on stage and they'd say, okay, singer, after the drummer hit for an hour and then the guitar, and
yeah,
that's okay. And he's like, okay, that's enough. And I'm like, well, maybe he got it. I don't know. We'll see how
yeah,
he's just going to do it on the fly because he knows he doesn't know what he's about to get into. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I tell you what, a funny story, and I wanted to bring this up.
yeah. Go ahead.
And thank you for the interview. But this is something I wanted to bring up.
Sure, go for it.
The Abstract days, the Abstract bookstore and cafe was a little place on Magazine right near the RC Bridge Lounge. And the Abstract, we were playing there, and CJ, our bass player, had this effects rack. And we're like, dude, come on, it's for guitar, his guitar. But we were playing with it in his apartment. He let us play with it, me and Joe. And we set up these carcass sounding effects, these deep transposed effects. So we actually did a show live, and not many people remember this. I talked to Joe Melitello recently. Joe and I are still real good friends, and he remembers this, but not many people do. We played a show where my vocals ran through an effects processor, and it was amazing.
I bet it was.
If you could imagine my highs the way they are now, run through a transposer that drops them low, you get the biggest, mightiest mid you've ever heard in your life. Like Nick Combs.
Absolutely.
So that was fun. So we actually pulled off a show once with transposed effects where I could pick when I wanted to use them and not by having two mics. And I tell you what, that would be fun to experiment again with live, maybe a small show to try to pull something like that off again, just because it interests me and it's fun and nobody remembers it. And it was amazing.
Yeah, you see, you're coming from a generation, and you know, the '90s death metal where it was a badge of honor to not use effects in the studio. I mean, you literally, I mean, Killing Addiction is one of the bands I really like from Florida. They have literally, it's like no effects were used in the vocal recording on this album. I mean,
respect.
Now, obviously, times have changed. I would say for you, I would love to hear it. But I would want to hear it on another project. I wouldn't want to hear it in Flash. But I don't know. I mean, that's up to you guys.
No. Like I said, that would be something for live because no, I don't want to change what we put into this band and what we were able to shape it into. And it's been many, many, many people actually in the band who helped shape it. You know, not many people know. If you ask who's Flesh Parade's bass player, well, that depends on when you've known Flesh Parade. If you knew him back then, it could have been one of 3 or 4 people, you know. Shane Leckler was the most established we ever had and one of the best friends I have. Amazing guy, and he was on that record there.
Yeah.
So, we had a revolving door bass player there, but the members always were Renee, Todd, Jason. And, you know, that's what we've been ever since pretty much before that album even came out. Because when that album came out, we had half the material on Dirty Sweet already writing, you know. So we were always behind the times on recordings. We never got the recording we wanted to, ever.
Yeah, I don't think many bands do.
No, but we never really got close, you know, to the sound we want. We've gotten very close. I'll take that back, but we've never gotten the cleanness to where you can truly hear the guitars throughout, truly feel and hear the vocals throughout, and of course the drums. You know, I don't know if anyone's ever completely happy with their drum recording because that's the hardest thing to get recorded. But you know, when you're at the mercy of other people doing it and not hearing what you're hearing, it's hard to translate that on a limited time with a limited budget and be able to get what you wanted out of it. So you're your own hardest critics. You're never happy enough.
True.
So my goal would be certainly to be able to get something recorded the way I want it now, written the way I want it, sounding the way I want it. Because what we're doing now is really good stuff. I mean, life has been rough. You know, I lost the use of my right hand. I've lost a child. I've lost a brother. I've lost my mother recently. Life's been tough, and I'm disabled with no help. And so I'm angry. Yeah. And so that's translating. And it's translating in a good way. I'm able to get that anger out by writing and recording and screaming, because the best therapy you can ever get is to scream for 45 minutes. And the only way to do that is with music, because you got to have something to think about while you're screaming. You're not going to be able to scream that long if you're pissed. You're only going to scream for a minute and run out of air.
Yeah.
You take all your stress and anger and energy and turn it into something. You know, you put it into useful work. I love to cook and I love to garden, because as someone who's a creator, when you can't create anymore and time doesn't let you get together with buddies and practice, and your creative release is completely gone, you have to find something. Painting, if you're able. Drawing. Draw yourself in a mirror. You gotta sit there and draw yourself. Draw what you see, not what you want to see. Draw what you see. You know. gardening. I love gardening. I love plants. I got that from my mother, and the love of cooking. You know, growing up with a single mom after my parents divorced
in New Orleans,
you hung out with your mom. You know, so yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I've got an aquarium. I tried everything I could, and the only thing that's going to cure that itch is playing those drums and playing these pipes right here, and that's all I got.
Let's talk about coping with it, because it kind of goes along with what we're saying. Like marijuana is essentially
medicine.
Yeah.
You know what age has done for me? It has reidified, or if you will, it is confirmed, brought confirmation that I was right.
Yeah.
Way back then when I wrote that song.
You were right.
Because that song was about the life struggle of a handful of people, you know, me and my buddies, what we were going through.
Yeah.
Girlfriends, breakup, you know, just shit that affects you at certain ages, sure, you know. And the only thing I found ever that could help, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, you know, the only thing I ever found that could help is marijuana. It's the only thing that settled me enough to calm down within my own body and experience life on the plane that my body's in when my mind is up here somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It brings my mind and body together in a way. And let me tell you, this pain, I have a chronic regional pain disease. I cut, here's what happened. Cut my hand from right here to right there where my thumb is. So all of this completely severed. 13 tendons, all 3 nerve bundles, both arteries, completely severed. Only got 1 artery now.
Wow.
It's always cold. It always feels like ants are biting it, or it feels hot, or it throbs, but very rarely does it throb. It's ants, fire, cold. The only thing that helps that, now I will give props, the nerve medication that they found that works for me helps tremendously. The pain medication, very short-term relief. That's for when you're just hurting, because that don't do nothing.
Yeah.
This stuff right here, though, marijuana, medical marijuana or marijuana, however you want to call it, has helped my brain, which has been traumatized to a degree where I couldn't go outside for a year and a half. It has helped my brain, it has helped my body, and it has absolutely helped my soul to get settled and learn that it now has to figure out what the new normal is, because my life has changed now. That wasn't possible before I was able to calm this down and calm this constant pain signal down. Once I did that, with that, I was able to figure out how to move on. So that's what that song was about before I even realized that that's truly the way it was. You understand? Almost foresight.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that there's going to be a video out for that song soon. Hopefully.
Absolutely. Coming out soon. Out soon.
Yeah, I can't wait to unleash that. Not that I'm a member of the band, but I do have a part in the video.
All you got to do is learn how to play bass. That's what everybody else did.
That is a good point. You know, back on marijuana though, you know, once like the techniques and all those other stuff we're talking about, it's not for everybody. It's not a miracle universal thing.
No, it's not universal.
There were times when the shit would make me like worse. It would make my paranoia and it would make that loop of doom worse. But there was a time where it shifted, where it did the opposite. And a lot of that has to do with sativa, indica, you know, finding the right strain.
Everything now is hybrid. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the indica for pain, now this is coming from someone who has chronic regional pain syndrome for life. The best thing for pain has been an indica, period. Now, it all helps, but that has been the best thing. Now, most of what you find now is going to be a hybrid. But you can find sativas and indicas, but you got to look between the 15 hybrids. That's all. And the hybrid, there's nothing wrong with. It's just you're not sure which way you're going unless you really look into what you're getting. You know.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I thank you so much for coming on. It's so surreal because you know, just being at that show in '92 and then talking to you 32 years later. You're the third person I've talked to from that show. Tony
Nice.
White, from Paralysis. Renee
Yeah.
Perez, your partner in crime, guitar player, and then you. Here's the other thing I want to say.
You're right.
There's three singers in my top 10 of all time. I'm going to say all time, and they're all from New Orleans. Randy Jackson from Zebra.
Yeah.
Kyle Thomas from Exhorter.
Kyle. Yeah, you're right, bro.
And Jason Pilgrim from Flash Parade. And I've had them all here on my channel. So I love it.
Baby.
Who dat?
Who dat, baby?
All right, Jason.
That's
right. We will be seeing you soon. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're right.